Hello, everybody, and welcome to Good, Bad, or Bullshit, the podcast where me and my two meathead friends get together to deliver verdicts on an assortment of topics. You never know, it's never the same. Today, joining me, Crofton Steers, the host with the most, are two of my dearest friends and colleagues. I'm talking about Bo Schwartz, the host with the second most.
Okay.
Welcome, Bo.
Okay.
And Michael Hodgins, the host with the absolute least. How are you?
The beast with the least. That's what
The,
you gotta
be-
call me.
the beast with the least. Now, normally, when it is my turn to do an intro, I would bring some sort of
You would
pop
say,
culture
I am the
comparison.
vitamin D of this podcast, and Bo is the multivitamin.
Yeah,
And
and
I'd
you're
be the iron supplement.
yeah, definitely. And it would have to be like, what is it when you put it up the ass there? What's that called?
A suppository.
You'd be the iron suppository. Yeah.
Good God.
Ew.
But I am a little like I'm
weird
feeling a
sex
little
story.
under the weather, and so I'm a little lower energy. So I apologize for that, but I have a feeling you guys will bring me up to your level.
Maybe. We'll see. I think Mike's in rare
It's a
form.
long way up, though.
Uh,
A long
Yeah.
way. We'll
Well,
do
how
our
you-
best, Crofton.
I mean, how's everyone doing? It's been a week or so since we've sat down and chatted.
I'll tell you what's new with me.
I guess we chatted on Friday, but not on the podcast.
Bo's like, I don't care what's new with
Oh,
you.
what's new with you? Sorry, I missed it.
It's a stupid thing. It's not anything. I'm in it. I'm right now immersed in a Pink Floyd phase. I'm listening to all kinds of Pink Floyd for some reason.
This
Oh,
isn't
yeah,
new,
why?
but
No, I listened to
Can I-
Pink Floyd like 10 years ago, but then
are you smoking marijuana and listening to
No.
Pink Floyd?
I think there was something I heard something about Sid Barrett because he went mad, like he actually went insane and then had to leave the band. And I read about this and then I listened to some of their songs. I'm like, man, Pink Floyd's awesome. And then I started listening to it. It's also, as a funny aside, I have this big hate on for Andrea's always listening to this kind of like modern sort of melancholy indie music that is made by millennials, which I hate because it's all melancholy. But like
Does he have
Pink
a
Floyd,
name?
fucking melancholy. Like it's super melancholy
Yeah,
music,
for
but
sure.
it's also intense and awesome in a way that like a banjo playing hipster is not.
I like how you were when you set up that scenario. You were like, yeah. So Sid Barrett, like he went insane.
Yeah, he went nuts.
So I
So,
started
anyways,
thinking-
millennials.
yeah, yeah, pretty much.
No,
He's
I
like,
like
so
millennials.
then I started thinking about like how much I want to listen to Pink Floyd and how much it's awesome and goddamn millennials and and then he's just peeling paint off the walls. Like,
I think it is kind of interesting that he went completely nuts, and I like listened to a few of his songs that he made after he was out of the band. And they're kind of interesting. I'm like, yeah, like sometimes a crazy person just has a different take on things, sort of like someone on drugs, you know.
You hear that, Bo?
Drugs are good.
And and being a little off kilter is good too. We need people who are
Wait,
not
did he
just
did he
like,
die from too much drugs?
no,
overdose?
no. He basically just became a reclusive eccentric.
Oh,
who
did
didn't do
he
anything.
have a quote transformative experience quote?
Well, one of
with
the
drugs?
guys in the band said he did way too much LSD and it fried his brain.
Yeah,
And I
I'm
was like,
learning that LSD can be a transformative experience.
You've been listening to a lot of Joe Rogan podcasts.
I have been.
I've
I'm learning
also
all
been
about fentanyl and LSD
Well,
and
fentanyl, you don't
fentanyl's
wanna do
bad.
that.
It's bad, and
Maybe.
heroin and mushrooms. The best one was I listened to 2 hours from a professor of mushrooms talk about mushrooms, and it was the most interesting 2 hours I've ever listened to. Anyone?
Yeah,
talk.
I mean, psychedelic, we've talked a little bit about it before. I find quite interesting. I've never done any of those drugs, but
Me neither.
they do seem interesting. Not like, whereas like heroin or coke just seem like you're going to
Well, it goes hand in hand because you're talking about Pink Floyd, and we're talking about like rock and roll, especially from like 60s to 80s to 90s, and like hand in glove. Drugs go with that hand in glove.
Yeah.
In
and
fact, I
interesting-
remember Mike's old axiom used to be, if the music wasn't made while they were using heroin, it's not good music.
No, you're totally misquoted me.
Oh,
What I used to say
you correct me.
was was that rock musicians were the medium through which heroin expressed itself.
You've refined it. You've actually refined it over the years.
Yes, I thought about it a lot.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
heroin's like, I just need to get it. This idea's out, but I have no medium. And then all of a sudden, some guy with long hair is like, "Hey, man."
Mike would be like looking at and seeing like news about bands that break up, and he'd be like, "Oh, that's too bad that band breaks up." And then another one would be about a band getting clean and dropping drugs and alcohol, and him being like, "They should just break up."
Well, that's pretty much you're talking the story. That's a story of Aerosmith right there. It was like early Aerosmith was like half decent when they were crazy on drugs, and then they got really sucky forever and refused to break up. It's like, lesson,
and refused to break up.
stay on the drugs or break up. It's like, that's how it works.
And someone could look at that and feel like that's very cynical, but I actually think there's no, but I think it's not cynical. Actually, it's there is something special that drugs do to your brain that
Well,
we can vilify them, but they do change the way that you think and feel about things. Anyways, not that that's the topic of this episode, but
I know
I love that you're listening to Pink Floyd, and that's why I asked you, are you smoking weed? Because weed is legal here in Canada, and I indulge in it, and just music was so great.
When you're on,
like I listen to music a lot and I like it, but I was like just listening to the song the hardest I've ever. It's a song by what's his name? Not Mac Miller, but
Macklemore.
Not Macklemore.
There's no way I'm gonna know. Like, why are you even asking? Just like
Steve
the song's
Miller.
called "My Kind of Woman." Mac DeMarco. I highly recommend it, Mike. You should have it when you get a chance to listen to it. But it was like, it's the hardest I've ever listened to a song. It was just insane. I'm like, man, music is so fucking great.
Well,
like, this is just the best music ever. It was so good. Euphoria, it is what it is. But anyways, you should.
What I liked about the opening to this is how Mike is like, so I've been listening to a lot of Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd, but like for me, if he had just said Led Zeppelin or whatever, it wouldn't be the same, in the sense that I just assume that Mike listens to Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and Neil Young on alternative rotate, that's
you haven't been paying attention. Because I've been talking about all these other recent things, like Albert King. I was down this like blues thing.
I
BB
guess that's
King.
right.
I was all in. Yeah, and they're still amazing. These dudes.
Yeah.
But yeah,
then I was like, bring me back my comfort food, baby. I need my Pink Floyd.
Pink Floyd. Well, after you don't listen to something for a while that's interesting and weird, and also I guess albums you haven't listened to before, like like Dark Side of the Moon is obviously like an amazing album, but then the Wish You Were Here album is like. It's also super depressing. The song "Welcome to the Machine."
Yeah.
I'm at my crappy office job, and it's just like on repeat in my head.
Welcome to the machine.
It's like all these like noises, and here I am, like a bureaucrat. I'm like, oh god, this is what my life has become. Anyways,
speaking of things that our lives have become, they've become a podcast in which we used to use a machine to give us random topics, but now
the random topic generator used to be. Yep.
But it's not now it's up to us. Like we have moved into 2.0, and as part of 2.0,
didn't you give your topic to, or I gave my topic to the bird handler, and then I forgot to call him and tell him we were doing the show at this time. So I'm just I'm just getting the bird handler. So just hang on a second here.
But allow me to elucidate here. Bo is the chosen person. Today, he is bringing a topic for discussion to the table. Neither Michael nor I are aware of what said topic is. He is, in fact, giving it to a bird who will bring it in a display of whimsy. We will read it, and then we will discuss and give it verdicts. So,
all right,
Bo,
here it comes. There, finally. All right. We've brought the top. The bird has delivered the topic from the heavens. From
Bo, please. I'm dying to know.
Today's topic. Drum roll, please. Well, before I announce the topic, would you like this topic to have green eyes or blue eyes?
Just announce the goddamn topic already. What
Green
the hell
eyes.
is it?
Gee, you freaking crouch. I'm basically saying what it is if you just take the hint.
Green eyes or blue eyes?
Yes, before I give birth to this topic, what sort of, what font would you like the letters to appear in your mind? Epigenetics! That's the topic before you lose your mind.
I like how the epigenetics, you idiots. Obvious.
Well, maybe I failed at it. I'm not going to say it again, but I clearly got frustrated with my lack of proper or clever setup. It clearly didn't work.
So my understanding of epigenetic. Well, why don't you tell us what it is? I have
please
idea.
do.
So
Let's pretend I have no idea what you're talking about.
I have a very layman's understanding of epigenetics. But in the broad strokes, what I would say is that it's basically manipulating DNA or manipulating genetic data to produce desirable traits in offspring. So
I don't think that's what epigenetics is.
Is it not?
We should Google it.
All right,
I thought
the term
epigenetics.
epigenetics. Okay. Oh, maybe.
All
I,
right, yeah.
maybe
Well, you brought it up, so I shouldn't question you, but I think it's slightly different.
No, I might not know what I'm talking about. I really challenged myself with the topic.
I thought it was. Why don't I say what it is to see? It'll be like a test, and then I'll see how wrong I am too.
Okay.
I thought that epigenetics was genetics that when environment influences how genes are expressed. So it's like the environmental factors that either lead to offspring expressing certain gene traits or them getting passed on or something like that. Or that it was genetics that get displayed or expressed sort of like within a living thing, something like that. What is it?
All right. So epigenetics in biology is the study of heritable phenotype changes that do not involve alterations in the DNA sequence.
Do not involve changes.
It most often involves changes that affect gene activity and expression, but the term can also be used to describe any heritable phenotypic change. So I think I had it completely wrong.
So it's heritable stuff.
Such effects on cellular and psychological phenotypic traits may result from external environmental factors or be part of normal development. All right. This definition is
said environmental factors. I was half right.
A consensus
So
definition
what is it
of the concept of epigenetic trait as a stably heritable phenotype resulting from changes in a chromosome without alterations in the DNA sequence. Okay. Maybe I brought a topic I didn't exactly know.
I think that's clear.
But what did you want to talk about? Like there was something you
it
had
sounded
in
like
mind.
you wanted to talk
I might have
about...
the wrong word, but it is.
What do you want to talk about?
I might not have the wrong word. It's just not made it clear. But what I want to talk about was genetic manipulation. So altering.
So genetic manipulation, that I understand. I've read a lot of sci-fi.
I wanted to be no. That's exactly what I wanted to avoid, was talking about a sci-fi topic and talking. This is real stuff that we're doing today.
Okay.
Yeah. So
are you talking about CRISPR? Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
CRISPR.
CRISPR. This is a thing. No. It is so CRISPR. It's an acronym, which I have no clue what those letters mean, but it's the thing that exists now, which allows people to edit genes. Like it's a pretty new thing.
Gene editing. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah.
Gene editing.
CRISPR. Yeah, it's gene editing. Okay. Well, I think we'll call the show Gene Editing because, like us, people will probably see CRISPR and go, "What?"
No. Well, you wouldn't call it CRISPR because it's like that's a specific thing. I bet you in 30 years they'll be doing it in different, better ways.
This isn't even about hereditary. You could change your genes now as a person, like getting a tattoo. Is that possible?
No. I don't think so. And I don't think people are using that on themselves. Except apparently there is a subset of people who are trying to do something called biohacking, where they are trying to do things like change their genes in their body by injecting themselves with stuff. Anyways, I don't know this. That's a thing apparently, but CRISPR is a process by which you can remove segments of genes and replace them with other ones. And I think it was discovered sort of like accidentally, which is a lot of things do. But I think it's going to be applied mostly in I would assume agriculture. It's like GMO foods and stuff is the whole thing. Did we do that before? GMO
I
foods? Yeah.
don't know if we did GMOs
We
actually.
definitely talked about it in some capacity.
Like
I
we've
don't know
done
if we did a full
pesticides.
episode.
We've done pesticides, and we may have talked. We did something about farming else.
But that's not the same as GMO. Like, are you talking like Gattaca, the movie? Is that what you're
I
talking
mean,
about?
kind
Make
of,
your
but
kid
like, but I'm
be
not talking
strong
about
and tall.
science fiction. Like, as
I know.
now, gene editing is a thing that isn't science fiction.
Yeah,
It
but you
is.
can't go and take your kid and be like, look, how do I pump the IQ of this kid up at the little gene editing store down the road? You can't, like, that is not a thing yet.
Well, I guess no. I thought maybe they were doing something like that in China.
Well, in China, there was something that happened in China where this guy, what did he do? Something with twins. He gene edited some children, but he was arrested. Like even in China, which you think they everything goes. Like people are not cool on this. Like
So
when you say like I want to mess with some baby's genes, the governments are like you can't do that. Like it's
Yeah.
not a thing now.
what is the difference between this and eugenics?
Well, it is very much like eugenics.
Okay, so it's
I don't
like
think, I mean, eugenics, I think, is like around selective breeding or selective sterilization. Like this is the history of eugenics, like where
right,
they
right.
would sterilize people who were in insane asylums or whatever. But it's just a different. But yeah, I don't think there's much difference
Well,
if
but
what your goal is to make some superior race by
looking at the definition a little bit though, eugenics is defined here as a set of beliefs and practices, and not a scientific thing, right? Like eugenics was practiced well before we had gene editing.
No, but it was practiced in this in the sense that like you would either encourage breeding of people or discourage breeding.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was basically like a lot of people were forced sterilized in the United States and I think Canada too. And it was often like people from minority groups or people with mental health issues. They would just sterilize them. It's totally unethical, but yeah, it's like they would be like, "Oh, these people have problems; they shouldn't be allowed to breed." It's just like, natural selection in process, where you're saying like, "Well, we want to get these genes out of the gene pool. Let's not let these people breed." But of course, it's extremely problematic.
Like someone like say like sterilizing someone who has dwarfism, right? They're it's like, oh, we don't want to make more of those.
Whatever.
But you would be incorrect because that's also not how it works. But someone would believe that like, oh, we don't want to have that many dwarves in our society. Let's sterilize them so they don't make more. That's eugenics.
Yeah, it's not quite how genes work, but I mean, it is right in the sense that like basically,
it's definitely not how genes work, but it's definitely how the system of belief, in a social system might come to function, or be a part, like the Aryan race, right? Like that.
Yeah, I mean that's what people. There was definitely like racist crap around eugenics, but I mean when Crofton says how is it different from gene editing, like I agree in the sense that like I don't think it's much different. Like you're saying there are traits we want in our children or traits we don't want, and we want to do what we can. We want to mess with genes to make sure that we get what we want, and I mean that's basically what eugenics is.
Yeah, it's you're never gonna go into your gene editing room and grab your gene editing crack tool, whatever you guys called it, crackle jack or whatever, and use it to make yourself shittier. Like that would be a weird use of it.
Well, what if you were on heroin and you were an artist and part of your art was gene editing? Like rock stars do it all the time, dress up in weird clothes, have different hair. What if it becomes, we have tattoos? What if it becomes fashionable to give yourself something strange that I can't imagine that gene editing?
Yeah, no, exactly. That would fall outside of what, like, if it's not to improve yourself, like improving, obviously everything is in the eye of the beholder, but reaching that, perfect state, however you do it, that falls towards eugenics. But if it's some artist gene splicer who's just like disfiguring genes because it looks cool, well, that probably is not eugenics. But yeah, so I guess like Bo, you're saying that this is, because I'm not super well versed in this, but you're saying that it is not, we're not at the science fiction anymore. We're at this is happening in some capacity.
I think we're at the cusp where that's where like it's within the realm of, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and there's stuff that we can do now through gene editing.
Yeah, and I
So is
mean,
any
I'm just gonna
so
say, like in the
yeah, go
short
ahead.
term, like I think that there's clear, we jump right to this whole like, oh yeah, I want to make sure my kid is like 6'2", or whatever you want, like, has blue eyes. Like that's we jump to that. But like the reality of like if it's going to be applied to humans soon, it's going to be stuff like let's make sure people don't get MS anymore or whatever other genetic disease that you can edit out of someone's genome. And that would be you'd be like, yeah, sure. Why wouldn't you do that if you know someone is going to have like ALS or something like that, some debilitating disease which is going to end their life at age 30 in a not pleasant fashion, and you can gene edit that out, why wouldn't you, and I think that's certainly the intentions there are very good in the sense that we want to alleviate suffering, because a lot of bad illnesses or diseases are directly related to genes. Like there's a specific breast cancer gene that accounts for a certain percentage of breast cancers. It's just extremely aggressive and it's heritable. So it's like if your mother had it and you're a woman and you get tested and you have it, there's a good chance you're going to get that kind of breast cancer. And it's like if you could edit that out, why wouldn't you? And I think that
But just to
that's
be clear, and I literally don't, I'm not sure. Is that gene just a flag, or is that the gene the cause of the breast flag
I think
cancer?
cause, like some things they
Okay.
know that it's the cause, or how exactly they know, I don't know. Uh, I
Yeah.
don't know enough about genetics to answer that question. Uh, but there definitely are genes that are specifically linked to certain illnesses, and it's like if you can get rid of them, that's like why
So
wouldn't you?
like in theory, when we're talking about this sort of stuff, like you can pretty much see like if in a utopic world where everything is used properly, you would use gene editing for curing diseases like that. In our world, I see that sort of technology. You open that Pandora's box, and you've got, like it rolls into like be it eugenics, be it like, oh, you have the gay gene. Let's find a way to remove that now. Like let's make everybody uniform. I'm not necessarily sure, as Bo was saying, like the art like
Wow.
artists and stuff, would it lead to greater diversity, or would it lead to greater uniformity?
Yeah, I think probably the gay thing would be more of a neuroscience thing than a genetic thing. That doesn't, you know what I
No,
mean?
I'm not saying. I'm just saying like people. Even if there is zero science behind things, let's look at people. People, you tell people in general that we can do gene editing. Like
Hmm.
you've got obviously smart, educated scientists. And who are going to use this power for good and saving people with illnesses, but then you have a large amount of crazies that are going to use it for other reasons, right? And for me, that's the scary bit, and I think that's what leads to all these dystopian science fiction sort of scenarios. And I mean, partly it's eugenics, but I use the gauging as an example of like something where that is pretty much completely fictitious, but is the but I could see some crazy person being like, "Well, we need to gene splice you up and get rid of that gay gene." Like
Well,
it'd just
but I
be
mean, it's like, and I'm not saying that there is a gay gene. I don't know that there is or isn't, but it's clear that like so much of what every one of us is as individuals is made up by our genes. Like it's not just like we talked about this once, sort of like on we talked about it, we were talking about meritocracy, right? Like
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
much of who you are or what you're able to achieve is your like work ethic, even something like work ethic. Like, I mean, why are some people lazy and some people not? Is it all, everyone says half it's environmental, but I think far more of it is just genetic. And a lot of stuff is heritable. Like we know things are heritable. We know things like intelligence is heritable. Like if you have really smart parents, chances are they're gonna have smart kids. Like which all to say is that's genes, right? And right now, like, I mean, from what I know of genes, and I think Bo was touching on this too, it's like when you have kids, it's like there's so much at play. You can't really predict what's gonna be passed down to your children, what bits they're gonna inherit, what aren't, what genes you have that are dominant, and what your partner's genes have that are either dominant or recessive. And if you have two recessive genes, then they might display in your children when neither of you have those things. Like, it's very complicated. It's like how a child becomes an individual. It's just like totally nuts. But it's all genes. Is kind of, I guess, what I'm getting at. I think it's less of it's environmental than we think it is. So, I mean, yeah, I think you're, in the sense, your fears about this, like dystopian stuff, like, I think is absolutely what is what is going to come out of this stuff, which is why I feel like we need to be really careful on how technologies like this.
What I do understand about the scenario, though, is that at least here in North America and in Europe, we are being careful. There are regulations, but China's like just there's none. So like the fact is that the cat is out of the bag, and we can be responsible with it here, but that doesn't mean it's inaccessible to places where that's not the case.
China's cat's got 8 heads.
Yeah, well, I don't think gene editing will accomplish that, but I guess
because of gene editing.
But, like, you know, there's this sense that there's a lot of power behind being able to right now, the only way that we have to shape the beings that we're bringing into this world is through partner selection. Like, that's it, right? That's the only influence we can exert over what traits that they're going to inherit when you decide I'm going to make a
but it's funny because even that, people don't, like, no, people aren't selecting their mates based on, like, what would I like my child to look like? I'm like, okay, I've got brown hair. I think I'm looking for a blonde-haired partner. Okay, check genes likely for blonde hair. No one's doing that, right?
No, but
when you're attracted to another person, you don't even really know why.
I heard an interesting fact that there are things that you don't consciously pick up on, like smells. I can't remember. I wish I remember the name of the disease, but, like, you can, when selecting a mate, you can tell through pheromones if someone will be a sick partner, but you don't conceptualize that on a rational level.
No, I heard about, because you bring this up, because I did hear about a study that was done where basically they got, I think it was with men, so they got men to wear, like, t-shirts and do a bunch of exercise, so they got all their sweat on them, whatever. And I don't know how, I don't know the details of the study, but they mixed it all up and then they gave it to a series of, women or whatever. But basically what they found was that women would find the smells of the men more or less appealing based on how likely they were to be genetically similar or dissimilar. So for example, if you're a woman and you get your brother's stink, you're like, ugh, I don't like this. Does not smell. Does not stink good. And the reason for that is, like, obviously you don't want to be breeding with your siblings because it's going to cause problems.
Genetic chaos.
Genetic problems. So, I mean, yeah, you don't know why you're not attracted to that person. They don't smell right, but it's the genes.
Isn't that the case to be made that that's on a very high level, genetic manipulation? I mean, if you're picking a partner on a subconscious level based on certain key factors that make some mates more ideal to you than others, then we're already doing that. It just says, like,
we're not doing it by any.
Well, our morality is not impugned because we're not consciously, rationally thinking about doing it, right?
That's why it doesn't matter. It's a non-thing. It's like if you're just attracted to someone, you don't know why you are. Those genes, or whatever is drawing you, is going to continue to get expressed, and human beings will keep going in whatever direction that is. But yeah, as soon as you start having willful, like, I want X, Y, or Z.
So picture this. I go on a date. I'm with a girl, and I'm like, can you give me a copy of your genome so I can review it before we move on to date number 2? That's too far.
Well, you know what?
There won't be date number 2, Bo.
Well, that already answers my question then. I didn't want a date number 2 if you aren't even... One of the traits I wanted was openness.
I mean...
I could have told that if I looked at your genome.
I did hear about we're making jokes with this, but I think that there are things basically like that. Like if you know that you had, say, a parent who had ALS. I think ALS is like Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a heritable gene. So you know you're a carrier of that gene if your parents had it. I've heard that people sometimes with their partner, they'll because a lot of people carry that gene, but it's recessive, right? So if you wind up with another partner that has it, and you both have recessive genes, it's very likely your kid's going to get ALS. And people will do tests for this because you don't want to watch your child die in this way. It's like, and that is really a lot of pain for this type of things. And if you can all of a sudden be like, oh, well, actually we can just edit out that gene, it can turn two people who are in love who just happen to have these recessive genes, which is going to give their child some terrible illness and make end their lives well sooner than it should. It's like it really does. It's so tricky to talk about this stuff because you really want to be like, yeah, of course we should try to do these things. We also have vaccines and antibiotics to stop us from dying, stop our children from dying before the age of 5 or whatever. Those are good, and you want to just think like, okay, this is just in that quiver of our medical interventions we can do to stop people from dying. It's just like, it's not only that science fiction has trained us to assume that this stuff is going to go completely off the rails, which I'm like, yeah, it absolutely will. It's just like, look, we have like the internet, right? Is a good prime example. Like when you hear people talk about the history of the internet, these early internet people, they're like, oh yeah, it was scientists and we had these ideals about free information and these just democratization of information and access and blah blah. All these like this stuff was all in the early 90s. People were talking about this, and then like look what's happened. It's like Facebook basically owns the internet. So does
And
Google.
then one of the scientists was like, we were going to share all this information. And then John over there took a photo of his penis and he put it up. And then next thing you know, it got more feedback than any of our documents put together. And now it's all penises.
It's pretty much it. I mean, it's just like you have a technology you hope and expect for one thing, and you're not going to get that, or you're going to get that plus a whole bunch of other penis pictures. Like, so to me, like for this not to happen, it's bad stuff is going to happen.
That's it, and it's tough. Sorry, are there any positives? There's a ton, and that's what we were kind of like when we were talking about the disease and the fight and the the fighting of disease is a big one, and really like Mike used the example of the internet. I think that's an interesting one because I think nobody would argue that it is a tremendous technological gift, but it comes with like it's like a monkey's paw situation, right? And I just feel like that any genetic modification and it would if it became commonplace or easy for humans to do, like just look at plastic surgery already and like the stuff that comes out of that. Just imagine you give humans across the board the ability to start genetically modifying themselves. Like it's just I know, Bo, you as I am, and we talked about cyberpunk, are into that sort of stuff, but like and in those there's often like genetic modification is a big recurring trope, but I just see it opening up a massive can of worms and potentially leading to all sorts of health problems that we're not even aware of. Like that's just obviously speculation, but when you again, I use the term Pandora's box. You open it, who knows what's in there.
Now, is longevity linked to this in any way?
I think like genes are definitely affect your how long you live.
Also, exploring ways to lengthen or slow the aging process down.
I don't think you're gonna get at that through. I mean, there's no question that those longevity I think is heritable as well. Like you get a lot of like long-lived ancestors that you might live long, but it's not. I don't think you can just edit genes and all of a sudden people live to be 500 years old. There's more.
That's a different study than.
There's more stuff at play. I'm reading this other book that kind of touches on this stuff about just scaling, and it's like, look, human beings live to be a certain age, right? Whales can live to be like 200 years old, and a mouse lives for like 2 years. It's like that. you can see that scale, right? Like, why does a mouse live for 2 years and why does a whale live for 200 years? And it's a lot of just about like actual physical size we are, how are the systems in our body operates. And you can't just mess around with genes to make yourself live to be 200 years old. Like, there's more at play, physical things at play. Why a mouse lives to be 2 years. Like, you can't just change his genes and a mouse lives to be 100 years old. Won't
Okay.
happen.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's
I
more
wasn't.
at
I
work.
wasn't sure if that was related or not
But I mean,
because
it is at
there.
play in the sense of, why does someone die at 70 and another person die at 100? Like, there are genetic factors for that, like
Well,
why.
our structure weakens and degenerates, and there's a way to eat slow or you stop it altogether. But I don't think it's related directly to genetic.
Yeah,
When
but I
we
mean,
when we do these podcasts, like I often it's we obviously do zero research or prep, and normally that's not an issue. We all sound moderately informed, but I feel like there's some scientists listening to this one somewhere, being like, "Oh my god, these guys are idiots," like.
Yeah, but also I think it's good because this is like a litmus test. If you are a scientist, this will inform you just how ignorant we are and maybe inspire one to go out there and give some more talks and spread that information, because like this is like cutting edge stuff, right? Like we're talking about something that is basically 10 years ago or 20 years ago a science fiction idea, right? Like
Yep.
and it's like literally this is like the edge of the edge right now in that particular science. But it's very like, for me it does spark my imagination, like when we take it a little bit farther to potential applications like changing eye color, which or something like that. Like I can't tell if what I'm saying is science fiction or within the realm of possibility of what the thing is, but making my kids smarter by giving them some, tweaking a few things here or there, making them more predisposed for success in life seems like something that I would gladly do if I could afford it. Like my parents wanted to give me a better life by circumcising me, because they thought it was cleaner. They thought I would have a better life with a cleaner penis. So they edited the genes off my penis. and like it's funny, but it's true. And like
it is true. And like my daughters, like both of them had some form of tongue tie when they were born, right?
Yeah.
And you can have the tongue tie removed depending on what the extent is. Now the removal of a tongue tie, like they literally burn it with this little laser that you go to a dental specialist and they'll burn it out. Like I was holding my baby daughter, and she had a high level tongue tie as she's crying and getting her mouth burned open, and like there's smoke coming out, is super disturbing or whatever. But like I know my older daughter is now, like, she's doing some speech therapy and stuff like this and is having difficulty speaking. And I know that, like, had we got the tongue tie removed when she was a baby, there's a good chance that she wouldn't be having, the type of problems that she's having now. So yeah, we made a and this is an external physical, like we did something to her for greater, what we think are give her better chances and positive outcomes down the line.
Yeah.
So like, who am I to say, like, it sounds so like when you're like, oh, I could edit my kid's genes. My guttural reaction is I would never do that. That's horrible. But then when you're talking about the circumcision example, I immediately thought about the tongue tie thing, and I was like, man, I've already done that. I've
Yeah.
already done something. So
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I've also heard that this debate has come up with, I think a genetic, I think Down syndrome is a genetic syndrome. So people be like, oh, we could test for that, and either um, you could maybe gene edit that out. But some people would say that people with Down syndrome are interesting people. Like they're different, and they have a certain, like, like, would the world be richer if you didn't have anyone with Down syndrome in it? And I think people who are parents or siblings or have dead people with Down syndrome in their family would say, like, no, these people add to the richness, the tapestry of life, right? You don't want to just say, no, there's some hardships with it, so let's gene edit it out. And I think this is like it's the same thing with being like, what do you want to do for your child. It's kind of like, if you have certain physical things that you can do to help them out, like your kid has tongue tie, it's going to make it hard for them to feed when they're babies. There's some very obvious things you would want to do. But would you want to do something like Bo was like, oh, I'd like to make my kid more intelligent? And it's like, what does that mean? More intelligent? Like, because I mean, I think of my son, and to be like, well, what do I know about him? And then I'm in my head, I'm like, what would I change about him? I'm like, yeah, he's a little boy. He can be a brat sometimes, and he's super loving and amazing other times. Like, would I change anything about him? Like, no, I wouldn't. And then think about yourself. Like, what would you change about yourself with genes? And I mean, I feel like I'm like, I don't think I wouldn't change anything about myself. I mean, I feel like my self esteem's pretty good, uh, but
tons of people would though, right?
right,
I
Like
want
tons of
little,
people would.
I want a little more
thing.
body to my hair. Like I kind of wish it had a
No,
bit
but I
more
mean,
body.
like honestly, like if you guys could change something about yourself, would you? Like, if you could go into the gene store and be like, all right,
Like
I
like
want my eye color changed. I want my
can
like
can
what?
but can
What would
I
you do?
a little more inchage in the
You'd make
penile
your penis
department?
bigger. That's what you'd do.
I think so.
And turn
I
and he
think
would
so.
turn it green and make it look like
Yeah,
an orc.
thing is, I don't believe you can do that. Like when they talk about gene editing, I don't think you can do that. Like you can't. I don't think you can do that at your age. I feel
And
like
I'd make my balls smaller so they wouldn't be so squished.
I mean,
I
like
feel like you could probably make your kid. You could do this to your kid. I don't think you could just eat your own genes. And
I'm just making jokes. I mean, I would do that to myself. I don't think I'd make that choice for my kid. But like,
so I'm
I don't. Well, I think I would. I think I'd be like, no, I wouldn't want to give him like 18-inch monster. Like
yeah, and like
I
20
just want
years,
to
like
be
all
like, give
men,
him something he can be proud
all
of.
men have 18-inch giant dicks because they're
And you know,
idiots.
if body type was selectable, it'd be hard to say like, well, let's make him a little mesomorphic so he's got muscle, and he's more predisposed to build muscle.
Yeah, but you're still gonna do things. You might be lazy bum
I
and sit on
know,
it. And
but
not
I'm
do
not
things.
saying we're not handing. I'm not handing all the solutions to the person. We're not
No, but that's what
designing,
we're talking about.
but we're
Solutionary, right?
influencing for preferential, or for
so
for to make things as
ta-
easy as possible. Like paying for your kids' education is giving your children advantage, whereas some of us had to pay for our own school. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
But to
Maybe
answer Mike's question, from my point of view, like I would absolutely get under the hood with gene editing, but it would not be for cosmetics. So for me, it's like I have a ton of Alzheimer's in my family, including my dad who passed. Like if there's a way to get in there now and take out whatever would cause Alzheimer's, you can goddamn be sure that I would do that. Also, like, if you told me, and this is like, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about, but if you told me, Crofton, if we just tweak the little A and then we turn up the little B, you'll immediately get 15 years extra on your life, like boom, guaranteed, unless there's an accident or something that I would be like, yeah, do that, do the A and B thing, give me the 15 years. So like life expectancy, if there was a guarantee that we could do this and increase your life expectancy, that's something I would totally be open to. But I got like I had laser eye surgery, right? And that allows me now to see without glasses. But I until I was like 27, I had worn glasses pretty much from grade 5 till I was 27. And then they told me they could shoot laser beams in my eyes and I wouldn't need glasses anymore. And I was like,
They didn't tell you about the scalpel part though.
shoot the lasers. And they and ever since that point, I have not needed glasses. It's like if you told me that you had the ability to heal what was wrong with my eyes, and like this time it was lasers, but let's say that technology was not developed. Instead, gene splicing was the thing, and they're like, look, we can make this edit and then you'll never need glasses again and all that. I would probably say yes.
That's a really
Like
good.
I
That's a
would.
really good example. Honestly,
I'm full of great examples.
But I think it's like
it's a good
it
example.
seems
I'll give that to
it
you.
seems pretty clear, like to me, where like the right part of this lies, which is like, yeah, you're born, you live your life, whatever, like everybody else, and there are things that emerge, like say, oh, you find out you're suffering from ALS, or you're gonna get MS, or uh, you have Alzheimer's in your family, or super predisposed to early cardiac disease. It's like all that stuff. I'm like, yeah, that seems like the kind of place we want to spend our energy doing, mess around with genes. To be like, if you have genes, or your mom has a breast cancer gene, there's all those things. It's like where we don't want. I was trying to, let's see, like, what would you change about yourself? Like, you gave the right answer. Bo gave the wrong answer. He wants to make his dick bigger. You want to
Who are
stop
you to
yourself?
judge what the right or wrong answer is?
I am a person. Crofton doesn't want to get Alzheimer's. He's right. You want a bigger dick. You're wrong. That's how it works. And I'm like, I feel like that's clearly correct, right? And it's like, it shouldn't be like, your child is born and you'll be like, you don't know what their genetic stuff is going to be. And it's like, do you want to go there and be like, I want my kid to be 6'5" and have a giant penis? Is like, and an IQ of 180. That's like, F off. Like, don't waste your time with that. But it's like your kid has the gene.
But what happens? What happens when you don't do that, but others do?
Well, that's the movie Gattaca. It's like
so.
That's what good science fiction is actually supposed to inform us about or tell us about. Like, clearly that's gonna happen.
Yeah,
clearly,
but
do whatever they want.
You could make that case for like science that just exists that is not science fiction anymore, like nuclear weapons and guns, even.
All that stuff. That this stuff goes, and it's already true that, like, look, if you're rich and have access to stuff, your children are going to have a better shake at life than someone who's poor. Like, we already have those disparities. We don't need another one stacked on top of it. And it's like probably why the government should come in and be like, listen, get your genes edited.
Yeah, we don't need another one, but we're getting it, I think is the thing.
China.
But Mike, you're right about all that stuff. Like, about, there are, it's pretty clear what the good uses are and stuff. But my super awesome example of laser eye surgery, I started thinking about other.
Is there a humility gene? Because maybe there's one where I can make Crofton like 10% less likely to compliment himself.
I started thinking about like what are all the little things, like there's glasses and but so you guys, not me as much, but you guys more, have gray in your hair, right, and stuff.
Yeah,
and like.
Yeah. I lucked out. I've got these great streaks. I hope we keep them forever.
But there's some people don't want to keep them, right? They're like, oh, I'm gonna get, there's hair product for men or Grecian whatever, blah blah blah. So yeah, like and that's just like, there's a lot of these little things, like, and Botox is now kind of mainstream. Women have like instead of shaving their legs and stuff, there's waxing, and then there's laser treatments for hair removal and stuff like that. Like, there's a ton of, like, other than the intensive cutting cosmetic surgery that we do, that I just feel like, that's the I don't want to say the gray zone, but it's like, yeah, like giving yourself, like making your kid super intelligent with a giant penis is probably the bad thing to do. Just solving the diseases is probably the good thing. But then all these little things that we already do in other ways, if we had like a permanent way to do it through genetic tinkering, is that like, what's that? Is that just bullshit?
I mean, I think so. It's just like, you didn't choose to be born. You didn't choose how you are. And it's just like, just live your life. Like, try to make the best of it. It's like, to go around. I mean, if anything, this is all just, it's like that whole thing is a symptom in our society of having like standards that no one lives up to. Like, every man should have like giant muscles and ripped abs and like be super smart and CEO of some company or whatever, and similar, and have giant penis. Yeah, like, I mean, that's all stupid shit, and it's like, we mostly know that, and it's sold to us because of all those industries you just mentioned that want your money. So it's like, sure, will there be the gene editing company, iGene or whatever, will come along and be like, oh, you need your genes. Apple genes. Yeah. It's like, your shitty genes need to be edited. Come to see us. And we'll be like, because we're all dumb, be like, what would be kind of ironic?
We'll say no, and then they'll have like a 2-for-1 special, and they'll be like, oh, that's good value. We should take advantage of it.
What I would just think would be awesome is that everyone got their IQ jacked way up, and then they're all like, "Oh, this is really unethical and stupid. We should shut this down." And then there was like everyone's super smart, and then like got rid of all the crappy industry around it, and then it.
I don't know, man. What if? Because listen, we have this climate change problem, and we have a lot of fucking idiots that are resistant to it. What if we inoculate ourselves against this type of idiocy?
You can't.
Can't
There are
you?
smart people that are.
If there are more people that are predisposed to be more intelligent, then aren't we programming ourselves to be less like an ideologue and more like a rational human being?
No, well, first of all, that's kind of a misnomer. People are not rational. Like no person is really rational. We're all basically emotional, even when you think you're rational.
Okay.
So and there's like research to prove this.
But somebody somewhere is using rational thought to make scientific determinations and becomes politicized by people who don't do that.
This is the like, I mean, because what you're implying is that people who don't believe in climate change are stupid. And like, look, I'm the first one to
they're
want to.
They're stuck in an ideology and refuse to acknowledge
more
it.
To it.
Or they don't understand what's going on with them, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
No, but I mean, like, there's a lot of really smart people who don't believe in climate change, and their reasons are probably things like social belonging and cultural identity. And those things are not just like IQ based, or intelligence based. They're based on other things. And it'd be like, could you gene program? And how would you feel if like a bunch of religious fanatics were trying to gene edit the atheism out of you? I'd be like, fuck off. You don't want to be gene edited to want to drive a giant truck and not, and want to get the oil sands up and going.
What would that look like though? Like you'd be gene editing them to be more docile in some way, more selfish, more fearful of a higher power. I don't know
what you're getting at is like the core of eugenics. Like we have an idealized person and we want to mold everyone to fit that. And you're like, this is not good for many reasons, because this is the roots of racism, the roots of prejudice. It's not a good path to go down.
Except where it concerns fixing your eyes, Alzheimer's and dick size.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are basically just like we don't want people to suffer in life. That's different than like sorting out our politics, And it's like maybe if all those right-wing idiots had bigger dicks, they would be more confident and not be so angry and scared of it.
I thought Anthony Weiner was pretty well endowed.
Was he? I don't know. Who knows what was in his pants, though?
I mean, I only saw the fuzzied out thing, but it looked like a lot of fuzzed out parts. So
he was a Democrat. He was on the left. So
was he a left guy?
Yeah.
Touché.
So here's the thing, though, is it's just like if everybody has a 12-inch penis, does anybody have a 12-inch penis?
Yeah, well, you're gonna be that guy with a 16-inch penis being like, oh, look at you with your little 12-incher, and then all of a sudden,
I got a 4-foot one.
In 100 years, all men are like have wheelbarrows in front of them to carry their penis around, and what the hell happened here?
Yeah,
aliens come down and be like, something went horribly awry on this planet a long time ago.
The women don't want to have sex at all with men anymore.
The women have 12-inch penises too, because everyone has to have a 12-inch penis. That would be unifying in a weird way.
Oh God! All right,
I like that.
So
now we're in science fiction land, but yeah.
Oh,
by the way, before we transition, because it sounds like a transition, I just want to respond to the chat room who thinks that I think that circumcision is a genetic thing, and I know it's not. I was making jokes. Just they're like, that's not an example of gene editing. I'm like, I know, but I was drawing a parallel only. But I think at least if I understand one thing, it's that, and I'm pretty much an ignoramus for the most part.
Know what? You could gene edit, because like, why does the hair on my arms only get to be 1 centimeter long and no longer, but yet this hair on my head just keeps fucking growing, and I have to go to a hair salon like a chump? If only I could gene edit my head for my hair to grow into the perfect haircut and stop growing at that length. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Like, I use the color of your hair, but like bald, bald guys and stuff like that have, if they could do something to have a full head of hair to their genes, and it's just it magically starts growing.
My hair is long partially out of a fear that I might have gone bald, so I want to enjoy it while I can, but I'm hitting 40, and it looks like it's sticking around for the most part. But I
Funny
definitely
'cause-
my hairline. I would like it to be further up on my head than it is.
I'm
Further.
curious.
Further down, sorry, on my forehead. Yeah.
How long after you turn 40 can you still be hitting 40?
Oh,
No,
just
no.
sorry. I'm
You're
40.
you're the guy hitting. He
Yeah.
said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry,
It's just-
sorry. It's just habit. It happened a month ago. I'm not hitting
Yeah.
40. I am 40.
I
Thank
I
you,
am
Crofton.
curi-
Thank
No
you.
problem. As- look,
You're a good friend.
I operate in a younger demographic, and so I see things.
Oh, I see. The
differently,
fact that I'm claiming I'm hitting 39 or hitting 40 devalues the fact that you're actually not 40. And in your 30s.
I'm the 30s demographic on this show.
But
And-
I want to throttle
One
it.
day, maybe your gene editing will allow you to.
you were
use
still.
your-
But
Where's the
correct me if
throttle
I'm
button?
wrong, Crofton. You were still born in the 70s, right?
It was a hell of a time.
Yeah. See,
Yeah,
there you go.
technically
So,
you're a 70s decade.
yeah, you weren't
kid.
born in the 80s. Come on, you're no millennial.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a lot of good Led Zeppelin there, Mike. In
when
the
did they break
70s.
up? I don't even know.
All right, let's roll into verdicts, folks.
Alright.
Let's roll out the barnyard animals and
Here they
let
come.
us all go.
Order, I said.
Harder in the court.
Hmm.
All right,
I'll go.
you're gonna go first.
I'll
All right, you know what? You're a brave man. I'll allow it.
All right. So, gene editing. It's funny from the last bit we were just talking about. It's like a lot of the discussion around this gene editing is because we have this conversation backwards, like talking about like, oh yeah, I don't want to go bald. You know, wouldn't it be nice for men who go bald be able to gene edit that? Is that actually a problem, or is it the problem that our society says bald? We don't want people to be bald. That's the problem. Not going bald. You know, it's like your penis isn't 12 inches long. And it's like, are you okay with the 6-inch long penis? Yeah, yes, that's fine. That's a problem with your society. That's not a problem with your fucking genes.
Speak
this
for
is-
yourself.
And this is the truth about half of what we're talking about. It's not none of these things that we want to gene edit are problems that exist in the world. They're constructed problems that society is telling people they're not worth what they're not worthy. They should be X, Y, or Z. And in all those cases, gene editing is clearly a bad, as far as I'm concerned. It's feeding into bad social trends that we have of telling people they're not good enough, they're not smart enough, they don't look good enough, their penises are not good enough to be in pornography films. That's bad, you know. And then so the other end of it is this like, you know, a friend of a friend of mine. It was 32-year-old guy. He got ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. He was dead in a year. Had a 1-year-old baby. You know, did not see it coming. Like that fucking blows. Like this guy was younger than me, and he was, you know, he lost all motion, and eventually just. I think he chose assisted suicide here in Canada because the alternative was that eventually he would just suffocate to death while he lived. These are the terrible fates a lot of people have. There's a lot of these. A lot of terrible genetic illnesses out there that if we have the means to alleviate that suffering, I think that we should. And this is why I think something like gene editing, we should, because it's becoming the present, we should get our governments to get in line and be like, look, we're going to use this rightly where we can and where we know it'll help people. And for all those people that have let mass media tell them they're not good enough, we should invest more money in trying to like, you know, tell them we do love you just as you are. You don't need that giant cock. So yeah, I think that this clearly sits in bullshit because it's half of it is really clearly bad and half of it is really clearly potentially positive. So gene editing is a bullshit thing at the moment.
All right, so I guess you're host, so you should go next, and I'll go last. Oh, sorry,
Yeah,
sorry
I'll go.
guys. I know it's never great when I get the last word, but it's happening.
I'll go next, and you know what, I mostly agree with everything that Mike just said there. I feel that this is one of those shows where, like, when this podcast reaches episode like 1500 or something, and like our kids are listening to older episodes, this will be one that dates itself really. They're like, oh, can you believe they hadn't rolled out gene editing at that time? That's so crazy. Those guys are speculating and they don't even
They don't
realize
even
that
realize it's on Instagram.
yeah, like it's all we all have 12-inch cocks now, and so I think that it is, I don't want to say in an inevitability, but it's with any great mankind advance, it's one that's going to come like with a significant cost. And I do think that Mike's sort of thing of differentiating the good from the bad and then looking at where it's going to end up likely, which is bullshit, is the right call. So I am also going to say that gene editing is bullshit. That is not to say that it is bad. Like, again, I think that could be tremendously beneficial for certain people in certain situations, but I could also see it being a tremendous nightmare in other situations, and maybe across the board. Like look at the internet that Mike mentioned earlier. Like, is it, what's the good to bad ratio on that? I don't even know if I could tell you. So, all right, Bo.
All right, well, good verdicts, you guys. I like them, and I'm now going to deliver my own, which I'm going to try and keep as brief, but it is weird and rambly as possible. I feel like we're pushing the envelope, changing humanity. Traveling the stars is going to require change. This is another step on the way to changing what we are. So there might be dangers, but overall, I'm excited to see what gene editing can do, and I might not live to see it. That makes me sad. That's the only bad part about gene editing. For me, gene editing is good, and I think all the concerns you brought up are definitely concerns. Legit, like I can't argue against any of it, but it's happening, and I'm excited by the possibilities.
I
That's
sort of
it.
knew.
I thought you were gonna go. I thought you were gonna talk about all the awesome stuff.
I mean, I can go on.
I'm just trying to picture you as a 7-foot tall behemoth of muscles with giant dick walking around, IQ of 240. Like that's what I thought you were gonna lay on everything you wanted.
Like I mean, depending how science fiction you go, I think we need to evolve into a form that can survive space travel and other, the environments of other planets.
Why do you think that?
Because we're going there.
Yeah, why?
Because it's awesome. That's why.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I know it's not awesome for you, but good news. You can stay here.
I feel quaint. I'm a little like the Earth is perfect. I like living here.
But like some people are just
enjoy your horrible lives of radiation.
Some people are just enthralled by the mere sense of adventure and exploration. It isn't about Earth sucks. It's just about what else is out there. I need to know. And I definitely, if I had the chance to. Remember we made that joke about wandering around space and being like, oh, there's so much nothing in it. But like, I still want to go. I still want to go.
Just look, Mike doesn't want to go to the dark side of the moon. He wants to be in the machine, okay? Just give him
he's like, Bo, there's no Diablo 4 in space.
And you're so bored out of your mind.
Yeah. You can be bored out of your. That was a bad. You can participate and give us topics to discuss on this show. Send us your feedback. What do you think about genetic modification? goodbadbull@gmail.com. You can also visit us on the web, goodbadbull.com. All our old episodes are there. We hope you subscribe to us wherever your podcatcher. Your podcast. Give us 5-star reviews. We always appreciate them. You can give us other reviews, I guess, as well, but I don't understand why you would. Yes, the three of us are individuals of an individual nature. I am at Crofton Steers on Twitter. You can tweet out your comments to me. Bo, how can people reach you?
Find me at boschwartz.com. You want to find out what I'm up to? Go to that site. It'll link you to all the business.
Are you kidding me? You have a website? Oh. Alternatively, Mike, where can people reach you?
They can find me on my gene editing Kickstarter site. So try to get myself some blue eyes, and I'd like to get about 3 inches taller. So,
he means GoFundMe. The wrong site, but it's okay.
whatever. Okay. Clearly, I'm not doing any of
No, you know what would be kind of funny, like, is for gene editing if the brands like come into play, because you know how like Apple has its like it's seen kind of as like a premier brand. It's the same with like Tesla and cars and Audis and all of that. If it's like there would be your Toyota of gene editing, and then there would be like your Audi, or so people would be like, oh, maybe somebody would be first to market, and I'm going to wait to see what Apple does on this gene editing thing.
I bet that will be true. That there's.
You got Samsung gene edited? Oh, you poor sucker.
Yeah, brand. Oh, yeah, I think so.
There's going to be a lot of that.
I've got Mitsubishi genes, bitch.
Yeah. Amazon will be first.
Oh, they'll deliver your gene editing. They'll have, because that's the thing, is I think even gene editing might be able to come in disposable packs, just to like you test for pregnancy. It'd be like eye changer, and you just go, his eyes change.
They'll just be like, they'll have those ads. Do you want to go into some strange building, and have your penis enlarged, or have it enlarged in the comfort of your own home by our Amazon package delivery
And you know what makes me sad is, like, think of all the people who got penis pumps that tried to make their penises bigger and then died and never got to see the future. That when it actually does work.
I like.
There'd be a lot of like old men on their bed.
You know what?
I think I wasted that $70 on that penis pump.
Well, you know what it's like. You know those machines they used in like the 1920s, the vibration machines to exercise, where they believed that shaking your body rapidly with machines actually exercised you in some way, and it's complete bullshit. Like, that's what penis pumps are going to be in 50 years, when we actually have like Amazon branded, like, just injected into your penis, and it just, you're just...
I do like how Mike's told this touching story about a real life friend who has suffered from ALS, and like,
that stuff's good too.
And most thing is like, think about those poor suckers that bought those penis pumps. They're so dumb, they'll be so sad.
You're not wrong. I'm an idiot.
I think you should end the show, Bo. End the show.